Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Caught on the Mic. If there's anything I love, it is a good collaboration. It's when creative minds can come together and put something together that is a little bit different. And I got to tell you, I don't know if it's just me. Maybe my next guest has noticed it as well, but there's been a movement towards neo soul, neo funk, neo reggae, and I have been here for it. It's like the whole world post pandemic has been looking for music to make them dance and feel good again, and I'm here for it. Joining me on the podcast today is my guest, John Heintz. He is the founder, he's the producer, he's a musician of the Big Ol Nasty Getdown. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Hey, Mike, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Dude, thanks for being here. It
Of
means
course.
the world, man. Um, so let's get right into it. So
Sure.
let's talk a little bit about your origin story. How did your musical experiences, starting with guitar and bass as a kid, shape your identity as a musician and a producer?
Well, it's interesting because I started playing at a young age. I started playing guitar at like 6 or 7, and then became interested in bass around 11.
Yeah.
But I was also really into athletics at that time, and that came much more naturally to me than music did. So I played up until I was like 16 or 17, and then I went to the business world until I was roughly 30 when I had this kind of epiphany that my life was bullshit and I really should have been pursuing something that was something that I loved and something I was interested in versus something that was stable and reliable. And
Yeah.
so I took a leap of faith at 30 after having that more or less epiphany and decided I wanted to try doing stuff with music. Ultimately, I thought I was going to be buying and selling guitars on eBay. I had no idea what was getting ready to happen. And so it's just this crazy situation happened where I wound up with the opportunity to go on tour with a band called the Lee Boys um, in, what was it, 2007, and decided to walk away from my career, which was in the insurance world. I had owned an insurance brokerage working on commercial insurance, and decided it was time to pursue music, because when I would have a tour bus drive by me on the highway, I would get this like pit in my stomach, feeling like I had missed my opportunity. And
Yeah.
then, I'm starting to look at the reality of being close to 30 and never having experience in the music industry, which felt like a hurdle that was not going to be something I could overcome. And just all this crazy stuff happened, and next thing you know, I'm rolling, and and I'm out with the Lee Boys, who they're an amazing band. They have a bass player that, so I wasn't going to become their bass player, but what they did was they brought me on the road and gave me the opportunity to get back up on stage and sit in with them, as well as learn the business side of things. And it was during that time out on the road with them that I started to formulate the idea for the Get Down, because the Lee Boys, being such extraordinary musicians that they are, in part of the festival scene, lent to a lot of awesome musicians from the different bands also on the festival wanting to sit in. And me kind of being tour manager, I was the gateway between. So I would get to know a lot of these players, and started coming up with this concept of bringing in a bunch of players from different bands into an isolated setting, and also bringing in some music fans into the room to be able to have that energy feed that you get in a live situation in the studio. And, you know, ultimately, December of that year, the Get Down came into play in a larger way than I expected, because, we wound up with, George Clinton was part of the very first record,
Right.
and most of P-Funk. So we wound up in a really unique situation, having his blessing and his participation. And so my younger days of music was very limited. I played in a church folk group as a child while I was in elementary school. I played in a band that didn't play out at all when I was in my mid-teens, when I was living in Connecticut, and then, went into the business world. at a young
Oh,
age.
man.
Yeah, so it was just so unexpected. I couldn't explain it to you how it happened. It was just one of those things where the
Right.
universe just everything aligned in a magical moment, and I took the risk to pursue it.
I love that, man. So did your family have a musical background?
Not really. My uncle, who just recently passed away, he was the only real musician in the family. My parents are not necessarily music driven. They're more um they read a lot, they watch a
Right.
lot of British TV and uh but not so much there wasn't so much gravitation towards music itself. And I think that's probably because neither of them played an instrument or really participated in the creation of music. So they wouldn't necessarily have a huge range of music that I would have been exposed to at that time. It was mainly just like whatever was on church, whatever was in church music or um, on pop radio. And
Yeah.
then MTV came. Then
Yeah.
MTV came, and that was a fucking game changer. I was like, holy shit.
Let's get into the brass tacks of the get down a little bit. You kind of talked about it very briefly, but what was the original inspiration or the philosophy behind setting up this rotating supergroup and this massive collage of artists across genres and generations? What problems were you trying to solve, and what gap in the music world were you trying to fill?
Well, coming out of the business world right into the music scene, I noticed that there were so many musicians out there that had spent their entire lives focused on the craft of music and had not spent time understanding the dynamics of business. And
Right.
so I looked at the possibility of being able to create something where up and coming musicians could get together with living legends and everybody's voice be heard, where the spotlight would be shined on players that, for example, like everybody knows Celebrate by Kool and the Gang. They know that horn line. The horn line's
Mhm.
iconic, but who could possibly name the horn players on that? And which
Right.
is a shame because they made the song in a lot of ways and only, Kool and JT really got the notoriety there. But there's so many people that are part of that creative process and their input is in these songs that are iconic, but they get overlooked constantly. So I looked at it also as an opportunity to be able to shine light on them. I looked at it as an opportunity to be able to pool resources and be able to help one another with different gaps that they were experiencing with furthering their careers. For example, um, oftentimes, somebody might be struggling with a publicist or a booking agent or so on and so forth. And the vetting process is very difficult, painful, and expensive. And if somebody makes the wrong move, hiring this or that to help represent them, that could really take down the ship. So I looked at being able to take all of us together and see like what people are having good experiences with and become a hub and a resource for a lot of players. Um, so that was really the reasoning behind it was to almost create a support system slash uh, I don't know
So like a
collective.
cooperative, yeah.
Yeah, where it was just musicians being able to learn from one another, be able to share with one another, and be able to all further what we were in pursuit of in our careers.
So how do you balance structure and freedom in a project like this? You know, letting artists improvise versus guiding everything towards a finished product.
Sure. Well, there's a couple ways that I approach the production side of things, but the commonality between all those styles is letting the musician be themselves,
Yes.
allowing to have complete open-mindedness. My job is to be open-minded and then make the right next decision. If I were to want to, it would when we write the music, it's being written on the fly. For example, Crispy Chicken and Ain't Nowhere to Go. Those were written and recorded along with 5 other songs with no preconceived idea coming into the studio that day, but we wrote and recorded, yeah, I think it was 6 songs that day from
Wow.
scratch. Yeah, Crispy Chicken's probably hour and a half between the time that we hit the first note and what you hear now. Minus the horns, because I didn't have the brass section there at the time. So
Sure.
I just shot those down to New Orleans to Big Sam, who's part of Big Sam's Funky Nation, one of the New Orleans greats on trombone, and I said, "Sam, I need you to do your thing. Do your
Put
thing."
some sauce on it.
Yeah, and this man, he put some sauce on it. I remember, because that solo that he does is
Right.
just ferocious. I remember I was listening to it for the first time in the and I was in the car and I had the windows down, and I watched the people on either side of me, the minute that solo hit, roll their windows down.
Yes.
And I was watching them just like bounce their head. I'm like, "Oh fuck, this is rad."
That's awesome.
They're feeling it too, you know? It's because that's the thing, is like I'm so attached and so personally involved with these that my love for it, it's subjective. It might be different than somebody else's who's going to hear it, but when you see somebody really just rocking balls to some of that stuff, it's just like, fuck
Yeah.
yeah. Like, all right. Because back in the day, that's how you would tell if music was a success. You take your
Yeah.
boombox out to the park, put that shit on blast. If nobody told you to turn that shit off, you knew you had something.
Yeah. Test marketing.
Totally, totally, the ultimate beta. So
I love that, man. So with over now, this is my viewers and listeners are going to be blown away by this, but with over 225 different musicians from 180 plus different bands contributing over the years, how do you coordinate schedules and
right.
these ideas and recording sessions? What's the most challenging part of putting all this together?
Besides paying for it, I would say, right, um, is definitely the tour schedules, because everybody that's in the project, for the most part, has their own primary band that they come from, and
Right.
those primary bands have their own tour schedules. So there's so many moving parts within moving parts that you almost have to be crazy to even try to take it on, because doing a tour, for example, becomes the biggest challenge. There is, you've got promoters that want you to submit a lineup, and that's
Mhm.
like 6 or 7 months in advance. And I don't know who's going to have a tour announced within that window. And I'm
Right.
not going to sit there and be like, "Hey, so and so, you agreed to these 3 dates with us. You're going to have to pass on that world tour for the next 6 months." It's unrealistic. So there has to
Right.
be a fluidity and the ability for, like, those promoters to understand that no matter what, I'm going to bring a badass lineup, but I might not be able to tell you exactly who's going to be there until a couple weeks ahead of time, because of the nature of everybody's schedule being active. Um, so that becomes a real big hurdle when it comes to putting the band out on the road. But when we're out on the road, it's so much fun, but it's also, it's a lot of work, because you're almost moving around like a little city of people,
Yeah.
and making sure that all of their needs are taken care of, making sure to keep your own needs in focus at the same time, and it can be really demanding, and takes, yeah, it takes a certain level of crazy to put the band out on the road.
Just so people have a little sampling. Just a little sampling. I'm gonna throw some names out that the normies would know, the guys that don't deep dive into the album covers. You have Cut Chemist from Jurassic 5 on there. Angelo and Norwood of Fishbone on your most recent release. Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction. Jack Irons from God knows every project from Red Hot Chili Peppers on, and also Chad Smith from Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that's the small sampling.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's the small sampling. So when you're talking about the logistics of trying to put this together for a live setting or recording sessions and such, I hope the audience, after they're done watching this or listening to this, goes back, listens to volume 1, 2, or 3, and kind of realize the fingerprints that are on these works, man. It's
Sure, yeah.
insane.
I look back at it, and it's a little mind blowing to me too, because I'm still a huge fan of these bands, huge,
Right.
like, that's the thing that's never left me. I had too much time to be a fan before coming into the music industry to ultimately get that mentality of, "Well, I'm this now, so I don't, I can't cheer on this or love that." I'm
Right.
still just a huge fan. Like, I was with Peanut from 311 last week, and there you go. And we were at Norwood's 60th birthday party, and Flea was there, and Robert Trujillo, and basically all of our bass idols. And one of the things I love about Peanut is he also has that same mentality that, not we're not too big or badass to be a fan and let that like 15-year-old
Yeah.
old inner child come out being like, holy fuck, that's that person, that's that person, and so for me, like that, it's really interesting when I look back at who all is in it, because even the last record, like I did a song that had Lair from Primus, Norwood, and Jack on it.
Mhm.
And looking back, I was like, wow, I don't think there's ever been a track before it had members of Primus, Fishbone, and a former Chili Pepper all on one track. And we did that with
Right.
Volume 2, where I've got members of Living Color, P Funk, and Fishbone all on a track together. So things like that, I I look back and feel really good about, but not sure how I made that happen ultimately, because it's just like what's the chances?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So kind of looking back at volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, what have you learned each time that you brought into the next project? Like, what are new approaches that you took this time for volume 3 that maybe you didn't do with volume 1 and volume 2?
Well, when we did volume 1, I don't know how much of the backstory you know about with the production, the way we used to do it. The way we used to do it, so volume 1, I flew in 35 musicians from 17 bands, and we
Oh, wow.
basically had a house party in New Orleans in this mansion that was provided to us, and wrote the album there pretty much during the nightly jams. And then we
Wow.
finished it up at George Clinton's studio, because most of P-Funk at that during that time was part of the project.
Right.
So, that when we finished that, we only had 11 songs, and so
Mhm.
that's what wound up on volume 1. We had nothing extra to work with. What we had was what we put out there. Volume 2, I had a little more decision-making freedom because we had extra tracks that I could carry over to either volume 3 or a different arm of the project. Um, and that was definitely by choice, because I wanted to have some ability to pick and choose which songs I wanted to put on volume 2 and which ones felt like they might fit in a better situation. So for example, Birds of a Feather, that was done during the volume 2 sessions
Oh, okay.
and had been sitting in the archives, and then I ultimately wound up putting Tim Stewart on guitar on that late in the game, right before when I started to kind of narrow down what was going to be on volume 3.
Sure.
Volume 2 definitely felt like there was a little more production happening than volume 1. Volume 1, we were just flying by the seat of our pants, because there was
Right.
no, like, we had no blueprint to go by. It was just like, we're gonna put a bunch of people together and see what happens, you know? And
Yeah.
it could have wound up being a really expensive vacation
Right.
getaway with no results, or what ended up happening, was the perfect situation where we wound up writing so much so fast that we had to go into the studio to record it right away, because that initial trip was only supposed to be a writing session, and we were going to come back later and then record it, but it was just, things were moving. It was beautiful. And so now that was the big thing with volume 2, was that just a one-time thing that we just wound up having everything line up the way we could have dreamed, our ultimate hopes come together, or is this a repeatable thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first night I knew, because the second album we wound up in a big mountain cabin in Asheville, North Carolina. and there was probably 30 of us up there for that one. It was members of Mudvayne and P-Funk and More Stay in the Time, Fishbone, you name it. There was a lot of really fun people that were part of that, and so I rented this big Airbnb, and we moved the entire living room out onto the patio, and turned it and we turned it into this jam space.
Yeah.
And within 20 minutes of us first starting to get going, I knew, I could feel it, and I could hear it, that it's gonna be okay. I didn't know how okay, but I knew we were at least gonna yield some material that would be of a level that would match what volume 1 was.
That's what I was going to ask next was, leaning into my own experiences as a recovered retired musician myself. um when you jam with different people, everybody brings a slightly different flavor. Each player brings a different flavor. Is it challenging trying to put together a coherent sonic identity that stays consistent for the project?
With our live band, there's a lot of usual suspects that are part of the
I would
the,
assume
the
so.
touring band. Yeah. Um, there's a core of players that I like to use for that, and then we kind of sprinkle in guest superstar artists, if you will.
Right.
But everybody, and that's more for the marquee because that's what the talent buyer wants. But the
Yeah,
reality
absolutely.
is, everybody within the project, whether they are, from the biggest band in the world or the up and coming badass that you might not have heard of yet, gets treated with the same respect, and as though,
Love that.
because everybody has a voice that should be heard. And some of the most beautiful moments of the project has been watching the openness. So for example, Fred Wesley, who played trombone with James Brown, the Horny Horns, and Parliament
Yes.
Funkadelic, we for volume 2 we did this session in Asheville, and Derek Johnson, who's one of the original trombone players of the project, Fred's his biggest influence. So there we are, Fred and Derek in the room together, getting ready to track the horn section, and I'm watching Derek just hanging on to every word and watching everything that Fred was doing. And it was so cool to watch him experience his biggest influence right there in the room, and him standing next to him, and them playing together. Well,
Yeah.
after we finished that song, I noticed that Derek is like really intently talking to Fred about something, and Fred's like super engaged. And so what happened was Fred started asking Derek about his pedal board. Yeah, Fred had never played through a pedal board before. So next
Yeah.
thing you know, the student's teaching the teacher about the pedal board. And so it was just like seeing that and whether you're somebody's hero or whatever, everybody has like something to contribute and something to teach and something to share and something to learn. So that to me felt like the project was doing some stuff that was a little bit different than the average band situation. We were creating experiences and creating opportunities for people that have a lot of respect for one another to be able to be in the same room and their voices be heard on an equal level. And so
I love that, man. God, I love that.
it was
Yeah.
rad.
Dude, that is so awesome. Is there somebody, and it could be a marquee artist or not, but is there somebody that you haven't had the opportunity to work with yet that's like near the top of your list?
Sure, Nile Rodgers.
Oh yeah, I should have known, dude.
Yeah, and we text every once in a while, and I
Yeah.
remember we had talked probably back in 2013, and he was busy working on some stuff for a theater project he was working on, I believe. But um, I don't even know if I'm remembering his words exact, but it was like, wow, I love that. All of my friends are part of it. Well, consider me a goodwill ambassador in the meantime. Um,
Dope.
so I've been wanting to circle back with Nile. Let's see who else. I have a list
Oh,
somewhere
I'm
because
sure you do.
because it's like I know when I get asked different questions about, like, for example, like, what's your top 5 favorite songs or who influenced you?
Right.
It's like all of a sudden I go blank. It's like as though I've never fucking heard
Same,
anybody's
dude.
name before, right? And so I decided one day to put down a little list just as a cue, just in
Yeah.
case. Let me think. Who else?
Dude, I saw you worked with Corey Glover, and he's one of my most favorite vocalists of all time. All time.
Yeah, he's
Dude,
great.
gosh.
Corey's awesome. That track hasn't come out yet. The track with Vernon is on volume 2,
Right.
which was like one of the ultimate guitar solos. I remember
Oh, I'm sure.
it was pretty rad because I had a different guitar player that was trying to solo in that section, and it just didn't feel like they were identifying with the song as much as they probably needed to for what I was looking for. And at one point I was just like, man, well, what about you played it like the way Vernon Reid would play it, that kind of style?
Right.
And they just looked at me like, that ain't happening. And so the next day I hit Vernon up, and well, Vernon wound up wound up
Might as well just get Vernon Reid.
right, right. If I'm asking somebody to play like Vernon Reid, maybe I should just reach out to Vernon. So, and to this day, I believe Vernon has given me the most notes per money, per dollar that anyone on the songs have ever done. Like his solo is ridiculous. It's like 2.5 minutes of just sheer shredding. And
Dude.
Cult of Personality, that solo is in my top 3. It'd be Cult of Personality, Mr. Brownstone, or no, sorry, not Mr. Brownstone, Mr. Crowley, and No More Tears.
Yes.
I love those.
Mhm.
And so to get like a almost Cult of Personality style or or driven type of solo from Vernon was just incredible. And that was the first time that members of P-Funk, Living Color, and Fishbone had all been on a song together.
That's insane. That's insane. Cult is like my go-to karaoke song. So like I try and do my best Corey Glover and like I tell you what, man, I don't think the world appreciates Living Color the way that they should.
No, they
Like
really
that
don't.
band is so good and covers so many different genres. Go beyond Cult of Personality. Listen to the entire catalog. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, they're so good. So good.
Yes. Yes.
And really nice guys too.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, they played a show on Halloween a couple years ago in my market, and everybody was saying, like, Corey and, like, Doug and Vernon were just interacting and mingling with the crowd before and after the show, which is awesome. Like, it's fantastic.
Totally. They're very, very approachable. And pound for pound, talent wise, those guys are
Right.
insane. Like, holy
Yes.
shit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the most recent press release emphasizes that the project is a DIY triumph. Outside operating outside rigid formulas and major labels. What are the trade-offs? What do you sacrifice and what do you gain by keeping this project independent?
Well,
Business guy, that's my business question.
um, by doing it the way we do it, it gives me, I guess, for lack of better terms, control of the music
Right.
and the ability to let it be what it's going to be in the time frame that it needs to be. Because I look at all the songs as being like living entities, and they have their own needs. They ask for certain things. You have to nurture them almost like a child, and then know when they're ready to be sent off to school. And kind of,
Yes.
which is, it's tough because you know that these things that you care about so much are about to get public scrutiny.
Mhm.
Same way as setting up when a kid leaves home. So you just hope that you've given it everything that it needs to be the best that it can be, and know how to not overparent or overproduce a track. Um, yeah. So not having a label in place though means that I have to kind of wear all the hats. The only thing right now that is subbed out is publicity, the PR publicist with Sam being on board with Big Picture Media. Um, Other than that, everything else is done pretty much by me, which it it can take a lot out of you, whether
Yes.
it's on the uh getting burned out, having one of the hard I always laugh that one of the joys of releasing music is to never fucking have to listen to it again. Like that's
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like, all right, don't have to listen to this shit anymore. I'm on to the
Oh my
next.
god. Dude, I have had that conversation with so many musicians. It's like, and the thing is what they say on camera versus what they say off camera, two totally different things because obviously on camera you got to sell. You got to sell, 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 sell. But off camera it's like, okay, how excited are you to have this release party and just start working on your new shit.
Totally.
It's like
Yeah,
it's like I
exactly.
had the best night's sleep the day after the thing finally fucking came out.
Totally. Yeah. I'm actually leaving tomorrow to head out of town for a couple days just to reset. Because one of the things that I did, you're asking what's different from album to album. Between volume 2 and volume 3, I wound up putting I think I've got roughly 130, 140 songs in the back catalog that haven't been
Yeah.
released yet. So volume 4, volume 5, volume 6 all have their music set aside. I've got 2 more EPs that follow up the Repurposed Purpose EP. And that one's a weird one because I decided to take one isolated drum track and
Mhm.
send it out to 15 of my favorite bass players and let them make the first move on it. And I built up each song as their own and put out the EP that's literally on the same chassis. Every single song is on the same exact drum beat, but you wouldn't know that it was.
Right. That's
Like you
amazing.
like you could even go back and listen to some of them and say, "Oh my god, it sounds like that one's 15 BPM slower than the last track." But it's literally the same unedited, you know, the same thing that everybody got. Because from a scientific experiment, you have to have a controlled element that you're starting
Right.
with. And if it starts to sway from that, then the ultimate experiment, you can't tell the kind of results that you wind up with. So for example, like I did this 7-inch with Remco Hendricks. He's an amazing Dutch bass player,
Mhm.
and he was one of the first people that was part of the Repurposed Purpose idea. But the thing is, we cut the beginning of the drums off of his track and it didn't fit the mold of the rest of them. So we wound up using that for his thing by itself because it didn't have that intro that all the rest
Mhm.
of the songs had. So it had to be very much contained in the sense that everybody's getting the same thing. We're not gonna change it. We're not gonna edit it. Work within these bounds, these
That's
boundaries, and
amazing.
see what happens. And it was incredible. And especially with the pandemic happening, everybody was home. Everybody was
Mhm.
looking for some kind of creative outlet. Everybody was looking for a place to continue to earn. So now all of a sudden, with a project like Big Ol Nasty Getdown that's made up of people from all these different touring bands, everybody's home.
Yeah.
And it was like, holy shit, this is really sad what's going on in the world right now, but this is incredible for me to be able to do a lot of production and reach a lot of people that I had hoped to work with someday and be able to have a good turnaround time. Because I'll
Yeah.
get a lot of players that are all about it, but the reality is the schedule just doesn't allow it until it allows it, and that could be a couple of years. Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm patient, so I'll take songs that I hear XYZ person on, and I'll just put it to on the back burner until they come around and they surface organically into to my world, or their schedule frees up. And sometimes it doesn't happen, but a lot of times it does because they start hearing who all's involved, and it seems like, oh, okay, well that must be a legit project that I can lend my name to. Because the thing you have to remember is these people are also trusting me with using their name
Right.
publicly, and I have a responsibility to protect the group of all the players and not um
It's unsanctioned endorsement is what it is.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a big responsibility there to make sure that at all times the best of us is being put out front. Um,
Yes. I love that, man. Well, I mean, kind of leaning into that, how do you measure success, as I hold up the air quotes, for the Get Down? Is it in streams? Is it an artistic fulfillment? Is it in community impact? And really, how the fuck do you even measure success in the music business anymore?
that's so true because like I coming from the business world, success is money.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case in the music industry. I mean, it is, but it isn't. For some people, maybe even a lot of people, it's a money driven pursuit. It's never been about money for me. It's been about the love of the music and
Love
being
that.
able to try to do something that helps the greater good of the community. Now, it also puts me in a horrible financial position at times trying to do that.
Yeah.
So at times I'll look back and I'll be um wondering if because I'm not seeing what's been done. I'm seeing what still needs to be done most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's rare that I'll stop and I'll look back and be like, holy shit, there's 225 people that have come on to this idea that I had and given their best and given me material that's what I feel like is really strong and sometimes even the strongest stuff that they may have been on. Um, and so I'll look at that as some success being able to get a lot of players I love involved in the project. But it's times like this, talking to folks like you, is when I get the the feeling that all right, this is
Yes.
something that people are interested in because I'm behind the scenes so much. While my contemporaries are out getting the love of the audience and playing the live shows and having the fun there, I'm stuck sitting here trying to figure out how I'm going to get this vinyl order and come up with the cash for it. You know what I mean? And,
Right.
and it's like, and so I'm just sitting there with no real things that are putting fuel back in the tank until we release the album or
Right.
until I go out on the road with the band.
I think that's the burden and the cross that people that really care about their art bear, is they don't get to experience the success. And I think for anybody that's out there that thinks the old music industry exists and it's a great get rich quick scheme, get in your DeLorean and go back to
Yeah, yeah,
1997,
for real.
because that shit, it doesn't exist
It
anymore.
just doesn't, and the problem is it's changing by the day. So
Yes.
there's no way to be hip to what's going on now because now is old news.
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's with the algorithms and the way social media is controlling things, it it's a handy tool, but it's also something that destroys the possibility of an up and coming band succeeding. If you're in a situation where you're having a hard time paying for gas from one gig to the next. And the only way that you're going to be able to get the word out there about your show in any given market is put money behind a Facebook post to just reach the people that already have said that they want to hear what's going on in your world. They may never get the chance to even get out on the road because
Fuck, preach.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah, it's weird because the pendulum is so extreme on both sides. You would think we were talking about politics, but I
Right.
don't. But the pendulum is so extreme on both sides. There's a music manager by the name of Dave Rose. He creates a lot of good content for platforms like TikTok and Instagram and such. And he made a video recently about this alarming trend that he's starting to see, where the traditional pop song, the perfect time used to be 3 minutes and 30 seconds, but because of the way people's attention spans have shortened, that you're going to start seeing like a lot of 2 minute, 2 minute, 15-minute long songs coming. But there's a pendulum on the other side where people want authenticity. Like I said at the start of the episode, like people are coming back to funk, they're coming back to soul, they're coming back to reggae, they're coming back to live shows, jam bands and stuff, because they want to feel the music again, not just
So
experience
true.
a pop hook, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was talking to Leo Nocentelli from the Meters a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how he was around some major promoters recently, and the word on the street is people are looking for the real deal. They want the real shit
Yeah.
again, and that is, I think, starting to push that trend towards all the neo and all the, the stuff that gets lost in the cracks. Because
Yeah.
ultimately the ones that make it the furthest are the ones that are most like one another in the pop world. And it's the ones that are not going to disrupt the radio listener from changing the station so they don't miss out on the advertising revenue from the station's point of view. So it
Right.
creates sort of a generic blandness that's commercially available and doesn't allow for bands that have unique instrumentation, unique lineups, and different sounds to be able to get the kind of airplay or mass exposure that most of the pop artists are getting access to. That makes it really, really hard to be able to compete, especially as a do-it-yourself operation, like compete with a major label and get the same kind of opportunities that they have. Fortunately, we've been able to break a lot of the rules. Like we got New York Times top 10 playlist on volume 2 with Creatures of Habit up there with Kendrick Lamar, Justin Timberlake, Lana Del Rey. And that was a moment of like, wow, it's really, people are open to letting us sneak through the cracks if we can bring them something that's different and unique enough to make it worth it. And I remember that morning too. I was having coffee with some friends, and they're like, "So how's it going with the project?" I'm like, "I'm fucking over it. I'm so over it. Like I'm gonna go get some applications today." Yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
and they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know. It's just I was burned the fuck out." And so I get home from coffee, and in the uh in the inbox was exciting news from my publicist. Pop that
That's
open, and she's like, "The New York Times has picked you for the top 10 playlists for blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Oh fuck, I guess I have to keep doing this."
right. That's the thing, dude. Like just about the time you're ready to pack it up, you've been kicked in the nuts so many times, you're like, "Oh shit, I got a win." And it's not a
Totally,
small win. It's a big
it's
win.
a
So
big one. Yeah,
I guess I'm signed back up for this shit.
I, I I was talking to Samantha, my publicist, this morning, and I'm like, "Man, just if I can get Rolling Stone and a Grammy, I could stop doing this shit and just go like get a day job." I mean,
Oh
I'm,
my
I'm
god.
so grateful to be in the position I'm in with this, but
Yeah.
there's a lot that it takes out of you that the majority of folks don't see or don't necessarily want to see. Um, so there's definitely times, even though I don't think I could ever walk away from this. Um,
Mhm.
there's times that it's so trying where it's like, what am I fucking doing? Like I could be chilling on a beach somewhere and the whatever's being spent on this album, I could be chilling. Instead, I'm
Dude.
putting myself in a position of discomfort for
Dude, I think you and I could write a joint book together, and we can talk our experience as DIYers, and
totally.
like the struggles of the imposter syndrome, and like everything that's challenging that comes along with it. But then you have the pinch me moments. You have those
Right.
moments where you're in a room with such great creatives where you're like, is this really my life? Is this really fucking happening right now?
Yeah. Totally.
Dude. So, which brings me to this. What collaboration surprised you the most that you least expected, and how the artist showed up unexpectedly for you?
Well, Chad Smith was one that was pretty rad when that happened. So I had gotten this idea after watching the Sound City documentary about the Neve that Dave Grohl wound up buying and bringing up to the studio.
Yes.
And I got determined that we were and just totally set on the idea that we were going to mix volume 2 on that board. And again, the universe provided. My buddy Jason Wish had known Dave Grohl's wife for a number of years, so he reached out to her, and she passed along the studio manager's number, and then I got in touch with him, and they invited us to come up and mix the album up there, which turned into several years of doing some unbelievable collaborations up at that studio. So one day we were sitting around, and I think it was Lou, who's the head engineer up there, said, we just had Chad in the studio working on some stuff. This seems like it would be something right up his alley. I was like, yeah, I think this would be, that's a great idea. And Chad wound up hitting me up before I reached out to him, saying, "Hey, dude, you want to jam?" or something along those lines. And so we set up a session. It was Chad and Stephen Perkins that day on drums, and so those moments are like the holy
Right.
shit. I got Perkins. Fuck, there was a day that we had Taylor Hawkins in the studio. Chad wasn't there, but yeah, Taylor Hawkins, Stephen Perkins, and Jack Irons all in the room, and it was just like, whoa,
Yeah.
holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's crazy is like, a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people out that are not music nerds like we are.
Right.
No Jack and Taylor from, Foo Fighters, and Jack's work with Pearl Jam for a short stint of time. But those guys were like really diverse players. They played every style under the sun, and they're so fucking good at it too.
They are. Jack Jack is one of the most amazing stories in contemporary music, I believe.
Yeah,
Because I don't know if you know this or not, but he is the reason Pearl Jam happened.
I did not know that.
So remember, they were Mookie Blaylock for a period,
Right.
and during that time, I think it was Jeff gave Jack a mixtape of Mookie Blaylock saying, "Hey, would you want to come and drum for us? And we're also looking for a singer." And so Jack hadn't been ready yet to, start touring again and playing with the band, but said, "Hey, if I hear of anybody or anybody comes to mind, do you mind if I pass this along?" So one day he and Eddie Vedder were surfing, and Jack handed the tape to Eddie. Eddie listened to some of it, then went out and surfed and wrote 3 of the songs from the first album before he came back.
Jesus.
Yeah, so that wouldn't have happened without Jack.
Yeah.
Being the original drummer of the Chili Peppers. If you think
Hmm.
about that, then it would have been different than what they are now.
Yeah.
And if you take those 2 bands out of the equation and you look at modern music, at least in those genres, whoa,
The whole first half of the 90s wouldn't have happened.
right, right. But then you also look back at bands that got overlooked like Fishbone,
Right.
and those
Yes.
bands wouldn't have happened without a Fishbone.
Yeah,
So
dude.
it's all interconnected at the end of the
Yeah.
day, and that's part of what I've been doing with the project is following that lineage and making sure that it's not only a bunch of great musicians coming together, but it's also historically a project that represents the the movement of music throughout time, at least of my age range. We've got players. I mean, our youngest player, she was 11 when she first started playing with her,
Yes. I
Ellen Alaverdian.
saw. Oh, yeah. Um,
She's amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are paying attention to anything we're saying, you need to go watch that video.
Yeah, was it Wrong Side of the Law, the one we did with her. But any
Yes.
any of any of Ellen's music is just incredible because
Right.
she's the real deal. It's not one of these things where, well, what's going to happen when she turns 18 and all of her peers have caught up to where her talent level is. She's exceeded that. She's solidified her place in the industry and is highly, highly respected, and also carries a level of professionalism that is outstanding. That's better than some of the, players that have been doing this for decades and decades. So, Ellen has been an amazing person to work with. Her and her dad Hovac are just incredible. We've got another song coming up with them that's gonna. I've got to wrap that up when I get back from the little post volume 3 break, which would be was October 4th. I get back and kind of jump back into finishing up volume 4, finishing up this the new song with Ellen, and then working on a project with the Dutch bass player I mentioned before, Remco Henriks, doing a really special thing with him on that I can't talk too much about, but it's going to be badass.
Love that. You know, I've been enjoying this conversation with you, and I gotta say, like, it's immaculate how this small collection of serendipitous moments have led to this great collection of work. How do you see the Get Down evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? Will you continue with full volumes, live shows, or mentoring more cross generational exchanges, kind of like with the aforementioned bass players?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'd like to find a place where I can have this be on the business side, sort of on autopilot, where I've got the
Right.
team in place that can really help me make sure that all the grounds are covered and we're getting the most opportunity to be in some form of spotlight. I'm not looking for fame. I'm not looking for a financial windfall. I'm just looking for the ability to be able to keep doing it and be able to
Yes.
keep putting money into different players' pockets that at that time that might be something that's saving them from a situation or creating a space of opportunity in between tours or whatever where I can continue to do that. um, I'd like to be I mean, ultimately, because the project was never about me, this can go on long beyond my years, and I'd love to be able to
Yes.
find somebody that gets it, that can handle it with the care and the respect that it needs to keep it going for however long it's meant to go. Because I don't know what that real answer is of how long this is supposed to go. I mean, there like we've talked about being independent, there's those moments where it's just like, "I can't do this anymore."
Right.
And so there's been times that I've been in that spot, and ultimately, it closes down my imagination of how far this could go because it feels like, "Wow, do I want that much work the rest of my life and have to deal with so many X factors?" I mean, it's never really with the players. It's more just like the circumstances of trying to cover the cost of pressing vinyl or
Right.
finding opportunity to be able to earn when we're not touring to help offset what I have to the kind of exposure I'm risking. And that I would love to have the ability to not have as much stress as I have taking the risks I'm taking. And I call them risks because, music's so subjective and you can put every last penny to your name into a song that goes nowhere. And then you've got nothing other than the song, which, if for the most part, it should be that you're proud of the song and that's the reward. But when you start to get into the business side of things where you have to figure out how to be able to bring in an income to be able to keep moving forward, then it becomes more of a challenge, and you have to think about things more than just being proud of a song being there. You have to figure out how you're gonna get it out to the world to be able to even hear that it exists to say whether or not they like it, So
Yes.
it's yeah, it's a lot.
It's funny you say that because we live in a society where if you tell somebody, an anonymous person on the street, that you're a musician, they want to preach to you about the conventionalism of the life path that you're on or lack of
Right.
conventionalism on the life path you're on. But you will see that same person show up at a Taylor Swift concert and it's like, guess what? She didn't take a conventional life path either.
No, no. It's like, yeah, people have a funny way of viewing it if they haven't participated in some form of
Exactly.
it. It's and you can't blame them. It's if they don't know, they don't know, and the only way you would know is because as being part of the industry, that we are experiencing one life at a pace that is much faster, I think, than what a lot of people in traditional jobs are experiencing. We're dealing with personality circumstances that, yeah, everybody in the workforce has to deal with. Everybody's got an asshole they work with, but um, there's just situations that happen with us that just is unique to
Right.
anything else, and So when you try to explain that to somebody that is in a more traditional field, it makes no sense to them. Like
Right.
I remember, I won't mention any names or bands, but I was on tour with a band where somebody had a heroin overdose on stage, and they were picked up, taken backstage, brought back to consciousness, and told, "Don't do that much next time." Like, that's insane. Like, what other job can you have something like that happen and then basically be told, "Well, maybe not do that much that next time." So you wind up in just really bizarre situations that have different sets of rules and standards than normal life would have in some ways.
Yeah. What do you hope people take away from listening to Volume 3 in this latest collection of songs?
Hope, a positivity that is communicated through the music, and an escape from the daunting times that we're in right now. Somewhere to
Yeah.
just kind of clo- close their eyes and just lose their mind to whatever they're hearing. And if it's not with us, well, put on something else. But, hopefully when they listen to it, they'll want to keep it on and take the ride, because it really is a journey of a lot of people that put a lot of love into this. And this is the end result of the, the collective effort.
Yes. I was driving home and I was listening to Volume 3 today. And I was just driving home. It's rainy outside. I was a little tired. I was a little worn down, but I got a smile on my face, and it was because I was thinking about that concept again, kind of to retread it, that I was pointing out at the beginning of the episode, at the opening of the episode, how people are circling back to the authenticity of music that makes them feel good again. And I thought about a parallel to me as a podcaster of like what my purpose is as a podcaster, and it's like escapism, ultimately escapism during a time where we probably need it the most, like being entertaining and making people feel good. That leads me to my closing question, which is something I ask everybody, and I think it's very relevant to the topic today. And that is, what's your advice for a viewer or a listener for making the world a better place tomorrow than what it is today based on your experiences?
Selflessness, open-minded, and adaptability, I think, are key.
Yeah.
I think we've become a society that's really closed down to larger socialization. So, like what we were talking about before, about how you'd tell if a song was worth a shit, when you take that radio out into the park and hope that nobody tells you to turn it off. These days, it's such an individual experience a lot of times, where it's like, hey, check out with my earbud. It's like a 1-to-1 ratio versus maybe like a 1-to-50 ratio that would have been with the boombox. So I think that because we are becoming so online driven, it's really causing an isolation, and sense of community is not as strong as it was when I was a kid. Uh, there's just so much that's different in the world that has changed, and people of my generation are still trying to hang on to what's normal for them, while trying to adapt to this new idea, or these new ways of interacting, and so on and so forth. So I think bringing community back is really a key, and being willing to share knowledge and share experience that might help somebody that's trying the same pursuit avoid certain pitfalls. So, for example, like, I've made a ton of mistakes over the years with the Big Ol Nasty Getdown. I mean, there was no blueprint, so I was bound to fuck shit up left and right
Right.
at times, just because I had no knowledge of how to pursue it. Now, I can take that information and pass that along to the next musician to give them a heads up of, maybe don't do that. If you do that, this might happen. And if this happens, well, this and this might happen, and you might wind up phased out of the industry. Or if,
Yeah.
you know, exhausted cash wise to be able to keep going. So I think that just being able to pass along experiences is really key as well, because I couldn't have gotten to the place that I'm at without having uh that information passed along to me. Gary Scheider and Belita Woods of P-Funk were like my mom and father in the industry.
Right.
Because my real parents, they're absolutely super supportive, but just couldn't answer questions that I had because they just hadn't lived in that lifestyle or had experience in the music industry. So Gary and Belita were huge, huge role models, and Gary in particular passed along just tons and tons of information that became critical in continuing on in the early days. Leo Nocentelli from the Meters is another one who's really stepped up and been uh, a, a person that's taught me a lot. And, it's just trying to learn from everybody and figuring out from them what I can pass along to the next generation to be able to be of any help or positivity.
Yeah, we've become a society that has completely changed the difference of monocultural experiences. Like, we all used to gather around the TV when the MTV Video Music Awards would come on, and then we'd all talk about it the next day, or the Super Bowl the next day. And now, because to your point, because of this online presence, we're only seeing things with tunnel vision and experiencing them by ourselves. So we're not experiencing the communal aspects of it. And I think people do miss that. And that's why sporting events are still so huge and concerts are still so huge. So I 110% agree with every last drop that you just shared here. Well, man, why don't you tell my audience where they can find you and your music online?
All right. So let's see. BigOlNastyGetdown.com is our website. Our Insta is at Big Ol Nasty Getdown. My Insta is at Getdown Music. We're pretty much on all the major streaming sites, and yeah, whatever the preferred streaming site is, we should be able to be found there. And then if you want physical albums, we've got a store, and you can just go on the website and hit the store button. And we've actually got a unique store because I carry merch from a lot of the players, bands that are part of the
That's
project.
amazing.
And it keeps it, really awesome, because here's the thing, like, an album sale is an album sale, and that revenue is going to help the same way either way, whether it's my album that's being sold or one of Galactic's albums that's being sold.
Right.
Either way, it's still helping keep the thing moving, and it's also giving exposure and giving a platform for these other bands that the members are part of, another place to get exposure. So we've got, I don't know, I think 130 titles in the shop. We got the Bad Brains reissues, the Funkadelic,
Love it.
all that stuff. So
Hell
um,
yes.
yeah, it's really cool. I get to work with our distributor, Org Music. They opened up an account for me so I can order anything out of their catalog, and then Color Red Music, which is out of Denver, which is Eddie Roberts from the New Master Sounds label. I've got an account with them, so I carry a lot of their catalog as well. Because all at the end of the day, we're all trying to achieve the same and get forward motion. So if I can help them and they can help me, we're doing something. We're doing something right.
Dude, I got to tell you, I am happy as shit that Sam connected the two of us because we are very like and similar minded guys. And
Hell yeah, me too.
I hope beyond this we stay in contact and that you'll come back and do the show sometime. I've really enjoyed this
Oh,
episode.
thanks, man. I would love to anytime as well. And when we hop off this, I'll give you my direct contact.
Yeah. Likewise, likewise. Well, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check out the Big Ol Nasty Get Down. There's nothing nasty about it. It's all tasty, man. Like,
Right
go
on.
enjoy some music, live life. And John, thank you so much for doing the podcast. The world is a much better place with you in it, my friend.
Oh man, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. And it was a real honor getting a chance to talk with you and being on the show.